Welcome to the Art and Science of Complex Sales, proudly presented by Membrane. This podcast is your gateway to mastering the craft of modern selling. If you're passionate about growth, impact, and unlocking full potential in sales and revenue, you're in the right place. So don't forget to like, subscribe, and share. And now let's get started with today's guest.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to the show. Today, we're sitting down with Raju. Raju is one of the smartest people I know, and I've met a lot of smart people while recording this podcast. He's a Singapore-based sales leader. He's got over 2 decades of experience turning around underperforming teams and building sales ecosystems. So he's done this from everybody from Xerox to Oracle to leading other global sales transformations. And he's now the founder and CEO of the Power of Disruptive Solutions. This is his own sales as a service business, and he helps organizations scale and win. He's also written a book, the author of Magical Selling, Engineering Enterprise Sales Success on Any Team, in any industry, and in any economy. So in our conversation, he's going to be sharing some real-world insights. He's going to share his journey and how to win deals by focusing on the buyer, not the product. So let's get started with Raju. Raju, welcome to the program. How are you, my friend?
I'm good. Thanks for having me. Glad to be here. This is my first podcast as a guest.
Let's go. That's really exciting. Really, really exciting. Well, welcome to the podcast sphere. Hey, for the listeners, what part of the world are you in right now?
I'm based in Singapore, and I've been here for about 20 years. This is where I operate my sales and all my jobs from. And right now it's 7 p.m. when I'm talking to you.
So we're literally you're the exact other side of the world. So 12 hours.
Exactly.
I think that's what it means. I was never good at math, but I think that's what it means. We're 12 hours apart. We're the exact other side of the world. I'm in Columbus, Ohio, talking to Singapore, having some fun. Well, this is going to be good because I think it gives us a really good perspective, and we get the opportunity to talk about, what is happening in sales these days and what you're seeing locally, what you're seeing globally. So, but first off, let's just start with you. How did you get into sales?
Sales was my first job out of college. Actually, it started in the final semester. This was 1,000 years ago, 1998. That's January of 1998. It was final semester. It was a tough job market. We were not finding enough jobs, but that's another story. So what we decided was, why not find some project to do and get some money in the pocket. The university allowed that. We were supposed to graduate that summer being May that year. And I looked at a job, the newspapers back then. And then I ended up joining as a trainee in the final semester at Xerox.
Oh, awesome.
And as things turned out, Xerox is known. I didn't know sales career happened at the time. We were all in different functions, marketing, HR, those kind of things. No one told there's a career called sales. No one aspired for it, but that was the first job. And Xerox happened to be one of the best companies on the planet with their sales training and sales practices, etc. And to top that, the guy that I was reporting to was considered the best in India. I was based in India at the time. And he and his team were considered the best team, best sales manager for the previous 6 years in a row in the country. And everything that the trainer has ever said, when we were, initial first week, we were being trained on what needs to be sold, how the, photocopier drum works and all that kind of stuff. They would take the example of what this guy did in his deals, and that used to be the sales training content. And because I was a trainee, I ended up reporting to him, and I got directly into the front line, the trenches, no business development, no marketing, no messaging, nothing. And it was always in the front line, in the trenches. And then everything from there onwards was derived rather than the other way around. So we had to derive what comes out of it as a lesson, get kicked in the butt first, and then go on from there. So that lasted for about 4.5 months by the time I graduated in May. And then June, I would join software. So my first job was that. And then in June. It was my main full-time job, and that was also sales for a reseller of a software company.
Wow, well, Xerox. I've heard so many good things about their training program, and it was legendary. Went from IBM to
And getting
Xerox.
it
It's
done.
legendary. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
And
What were
coming
the
from this
core?
guy, yeah.
Yeah, what were the core things that you learned? Like, I mean, what are some of the takeaways about how they trained you and how you were trained by your mentor there?
Yeah, so one was the first few days it's very interesting. The whole thing was a training. I was a trainee there. So,
Hmm.
part of that is, enablement, etc. So they would give me some documents at the beginning and say, this is how a drum works, this is what you should show, and that sort of thing on how to do the demo. And they would, focus on how comfortable you are in talking about it, how smooth, and that sort of thing. Now, I had my education, I was able to do it, but I'll give you the first instance of where the real training started. Now, we knew it was a classroom training, people were training, and they would tell us to gather intelligence and, account coverage and all those kind of things. And that was table stakes, to be honest. And then it was very competitive field, photocopier sales from Canon and a bunch of other different organizations. It was cutthroat. You get out of there, your deal dies, that sort of thing. And then we had to move fast and so on, although we were trainees. But the first thing that Daryl is the name of the guy I was reporting to. His believe it or not, his name had sales in it. Daryl D. Sales.
I love it.
And yes, and he's a Goan, India. His name is English, but his name was Daryl DeSales, and he's considered very smart, very sharp, and on thinking on his feet, that sort of thing. Now, the first thing that happened there, where I could feel myself getting energized, is when I walked up to him and said, "Look, I'm ready. These 3-4 days I've been studying this. Where's my patch? Okay, where should I go and sell?" Because the money was little, but the commission was there, so that's how it was structured, the training course. And then he would ask me to sit down and say, "Look, you are," and I'm paraphrasing what he said. He said, "Look, Raju, you are an engineer, you are a merit student, and you're an MBA marketing. So you've done all the good things, but that doesn't mean that you won't make mistakes in sales. So go ahead and do all those mistakes that you want. Your job is to tell me where you made a mistake, and I know how to clean it up. I'm the best at it." So now that's the line, that's the arc of a story that I used for the last 25, 27 years, because I felt the way I felt. I still feel that when I was telling you this, I could feel myself getting energized because he took the responsibility off of me and put it on himself to clean it up. And he told me he's damn good at it. And one of the things that I call myself is I'm a sales janitor, one of the best at it. And if I have somebody else along with me nowadays, then I say, if I don't clean it up, then this colleague of mine cleans it up.
I love that. I love that, and that is how it's how we learn, right?
Correct.
So, and to have that time to be able to make the mistakes. I think one of the things that people expect or they rush in today is the opposite of that. I don't know if you experience that, but expect people to come in perfect or once they've had some training, execute
Correct.
perfectly. So where do you go
Correct.
from there? So you go into software sales. That's where you're saying.
Yes,
And so it seems like the start of a long, wonderful journey.
oh, absolutely. But the foundation was laid there, and there were many deals that happened that seemed magical. If they were not my deals that I was not running, I wouldn't believe those things are possible. But they were, and they happened right in front of me. And initially, I started selling in June that year, '98. It was CAD/CAM CAE, computer-aided design, manufacturing, engineering, that sort of deals. And then a couple of years later, I moved into one more company, a competitor to this organization, and then moved into learning management system applications, product development, product data management, lifecycle management, those kind of things.
Mm-hmm.
And 3 jobs later, 4 years later, I moved into Oracle.
Okay. So
Okay.
you went to another of the large. Xerox to Oracle. Oracle is also known for a lot of things.
That's
So
correct.
yeah. And were you selling ERP? Were you selling at Oracle the main
Initially, all of
platform?
it. Yeah.
Okay.
Initially, back then, it was a $9 billion company, and we could sell everything. We could get commissions on everything. But slowly but steadily, with expansion, etc. By the time I left, it was a $40 billion company, and I moved from one department to the other, but largely on the technology space, the database, the middleware, the business intelligence, analytics, all those kind of tools. But we worked very closely with applications teams such as core banking, communications. So it was pretty much every industry, and Oracle had the footprint across the board. Although we were not measured on all the things, but we had to work together. We had to fight with each other, win against competition, and fight again with each other on who gets how much of a pie. So it was by design. You had to fight internally, uh, win that, and then you get a chance to lead that deal, sometimes officially, sometimes unofficially, and then you're best prepared because of that fight. You end up, winning the whole thing because nobody appointed you. You earned it yourself in each and every opportunity.
Well, so tell me about, you've been through that journey. It sounds like you started a great, big companies, small companies, the biggest names in the business. Um, when does the decision to say, all right, I've done this, it's time to strike out on my own and teach others?
I was with Oracle for 15 years.
Okay.
And during that time, I moved to Singapore. It's been 20 years now. And along the way, the only two types of jobs that I did, if I were to look back and classify those things, there were two types of jobs that I did. The first one is turning around sales underperformance. And the second one is building sales ecosystems from scratch. All these are business to business, B2B, large corporations. So either one of these, either starting a new team for a different region or a different department that didn't exist before, new products come in all the time. So these are the two things: turning around underperformance and building ecosystems from scratch. And then I moved into another company called Hortonworks. That was for a couple of years. And in 2019, I decided to move out and start my own. What I do now is sales as a service for the last 6 years. And the logic, the way I arrived at that is there were quite a few companies out there that had very good products, brilliant products. They did very well. And I would look at the demos, and tell myself, these guys are going to kill us if we don't improve the products. And then what would happen, especially I'm on this Asia side, right? So some of these companies are from US, they're scaling out, into this region, expanding markets and so on. And then I would look at who they hired, and I would look at what they're doing, and said, why would anybody do that? I mean, that's something that you wouldn't do if because that's going down. And I saw that as a pattern, as a continuous pattern without exception for a long time, like 3-4 years. And I said, these guys don't understand how to build sales ecosystems. They don't understand how to sell. They have a great product. If I get that in front of the right guys, do the right sales motions, those kind of things, that should sell like hotcakes, but they just don't understand how to do it. They have the whole world against them, and they never succeed. And a year and a half later, they would fire that guy that they hired or the team, and they walk back or do something that doesn't make sense. And that's when I realized it's an ecosystem play, and they don't understand. Whereas when I was with Oracle, it was always an ecosystem play, and we used to break it what's not working and rebuild the whole ecosystems. That was part of my job, and I could understand those signals easily. I see them, I understand. You don't even need to think or plan or debate or anything. Just do it. And then in 2019, when the whole thing was ripe, I said, maybe we should do something else instead of another job. Why not do it for more than one company? And to date, we worked with about 26 different organizations, big and small, mostly startups and scale-ups. And sometimes it's the large companies, a few thousands of people running about $50-60 million business in the region. Global revenues are bigger. And these days we are trying to upgrade, in the middle of testing out sales as a service, upgrade to sales as a system, because if it can be made into a system, then people can learn it faster, especially in the startup world. their sales IQ is really low. The product IQ, engineering IQ, and domain IQ is very high because of all those aspects. But they end up getting in the way of their own deals and destroying the opportunities. And that's where we said, look, we can help you, but an in-person would be an expensive, time-consuming, effort-consuming. But if we make it into a system, the real SaaS, as we call it, sales as a system, then it helps organizations sell better and realize the potential. Because these two are different games. Building a product is like, cooking a burger, very tasty burger, but McDonald's is a $25 billion business, and that has nothing to do with the burger. They don't even tell you that they taste good, right? They just do that. Whereas others will say, look, my burger is better, the ingredients are good, it's fresh, and so on. But somehow they don't do a $25 billion business. So it's a slightly different business, the scale business, and we help organizations to realize that potential.
It's wonderful. Like we have, it's almost opposite paths in terms of this getting to that. I mean, I came in and I did a sales as a service business, which was really interesting. And I would have to say the first 5 to 10 engagements were they were rough, but until we learned that lesson that it is the whole ecosystem. Like there were things within the reason that it was rough was there's things within the company. We knew how to sell, we knew how to set up a sales team, but there's things within the companies themselves that just were tough to engage with, act, and change. And until we learned how to do that, we were not successful. I'm wondering, how do you then kind of, when you say the sales system, how do you take it and make it part of the culture, make it a part of what you're doing in your sales, like for these startups, because that's so important for them. It's so critical that they start to see sales become a sales focused company. The ones that win are that. The ones that lose do a lot more product development, and so how do you work with companies on that?
So we go by the building blocks, right? So again, the trenches, frontline, and working backwards. We don't open our mouth as a rule of thumb unless we understand the business, because sales problems come in all flavors. But the way we set the table is the organizing principle of any business is for sales. That's where it starts. It's not whether it doesn't matter what your higher goal is. Some of you probably is in it for money. Some of you want to change the world. It could be healthcare. It could be a green planet. Whatever it is, you still have to sell. Some people have to buy that. They have to buy into your vision. They have to buy into everything else. And so what we start is with that message saying the organizing principle of any business is for sales. And if you're not organized that way, then what are you organized for? What are you doing? It's a hobby and so on. So we take some time in doing that, but we get very fast into the problem areas and we start at the frontline building blocks. And the building block we use is a deal. A deal is a building block. You have to be in it to win it. Why are you even talking if you're not winning it? And what's your path to win? Okay, are you thinking? And that's when people will start explaining what they've done based on their experience. And we go through the whole process. It's nothing to do with the technology, nothing to do with any process or your understanding or your labeling or my labeling. There are too many labels out there. For instance, we do this as follows. Let's say you are doing an interview, your job interview, right? They'll tell you resume writing skills. They'll tell you job interview techniques and this and that. But if you take out the labels, if you ignore the labels for a minute, you are really selling yourself. And your resume is your product pamphlet in which you write about yourself, your features, your functionalities. You want a promotion, you want a pay hike, it's the same thing. You have to tell people why you're so valuable, and that's a sales process. So what we start doing is ignore the labels, get the CEOs of these companies to ignore the labels. There's a bit of unlearning going on there, and it takes some time. Some are faster than the others. But because we work with the CEOs, we have to say it nicely with straight face that they are the ones killing the company. So they should stop killing and let us, breathe air and, oxygen into the whole thing, etc. So that's like a little bit of eggshells in some cases because people are wedded to what they're doing because it gave them results. Everybody sells, and there's more than one way of selling. We focus on scaling the business. So that's how we set it up. If you are in a deal, You want to win a deal. And winning a deal does not mean you solve a problem. So that's the second layer. So most people and most methodologies, most systems, most of the talk that we noticed happens around business pain. And that's fine. Of course, you're solving a certain problem, you have a product. But the reality is there's more than one product that solves a problem. No one company, and which means just because your product is a fit doesn't mean you'll get a deal. So you cannot rely on, hey, this is my qualified deal. What's a qualified deal? If they need 4 features, you have 4 features. Will you win the deal? So we start again by asking these questions so that the CEOs realize it themselves rather than we telling them. It's always a better way of getting it done. And we say, all right, there are 2 companies with exactly the same metrics that you can solve, with exactly the same features, the functionalities that you can solve, same industry, same time, same, let's say, city that you're doing. If those RFPs come to you, request for proposals, which one will you win and why? And they'll start talking from there. Okay, I'll win because of this and because of that. They start moving. So we move the focus from the business pain to the buyer who solves the business pain. We get them to, we train them to look at the buyer in front of you. Now, if you ever watch James Bond movies or these things, you don't play your hand, you play the person sitting across from you, right? And now, but what does that even mean? How do you read a person? There are many of these discussions that say, read the room, read in between the lines. What does that even mean? It means that you have to read the person. If you have to read the person, what does it even mean? So we then have a formula for it on what does it mean to read the person? What do you do in order to do it? So we start from there and work backwards into an individual skill level and competency level, and then get them to apply that in a deal in which they're working on a live deal. We don't do examples of what I've done in Japan or Germany or some other location and why they should think they're talking to the greatest guy on the planet. Although that's true, but we don't want them to believe it. They have to be able to sell it. Otherwise, nobody, what's the point? There's more good advice on YouTube than what we can ever give. It's just that it's not individual specific. It relies on the skill of the person, and you have to make it at that level. And that's where we start. And these are the first few. So we do first few weeks, 3-4 weeks as calibration first, so that their thinking is calibrated. They learn to know that you should play the person sitting across from you, and there is a technique, there is a proper craft. It's not instinctively done. We can teach you that craft in less than a month on your own deals, and you can see the magic yourself. And once you see it, you do it in your own style, in your own preference, and then get results.
I can directly relate that to the beginning of this podcast. I mean, do you draw a straight line back to your lessons and the
Yes,
I'm saying go
100%.
make mistakes? Yeah,
100%. So we say that. However, this is but it's very important to not change a person's style, because that's what they're comfortable with. Otherwise, it doesn't. If I don't talk like me, I start talking like you, it won't last. People will pick it up. It's probably end up being disingenuous, and you want to be somebody else. That's not the point.
Mhm.
So we are very careful to retain the style of that individual. So what we do is we tell each step, what does good look like? Okay, let's say I'm going from Singapore to London. That's a sales cycle. Let's say now there are a few steps that you need to do. The step 1 is to get to the airport. So we will tell them step 1 is always to get to the airport. Now, how you get there is up to you. You can take a bus, you can drive yourself, you can go walking, etc. We don't change that part. Now, if it takes 1 hour for you in a bus and that's you're more comfortable, and because you have only so much money or don't have a car or whatever is the reason that you do, so that part we leave it for the individual to do it by themselves. They can start soon, start late, get there, do some other work, or get a friend to drop them. So from there, we say you have to take a flight, and this is the one that you do. We don't tell them you have to take Singapore Airlines or something, but you have to take a flight, and you have to get to London 14 hours later. And then from there, you get to this particular hotel, and you do this, etc. So we say what is a good outcome looks like at each step, but it's the outcome, not the action. Okay. And that leads them to decide, okay, I have to get to the airport. what's the best way for me to get it, given I am me. And then therefore they're comfortable doing it, they'll plan it easily and so on. Of course, we are there to do some course corrections because, hey, you know what, it takes 1 hour, you should do it in half an hour, those kind of things. But we are retaining the essence of their style. We don't want to change their style. We just want to change their perspective, what they're looking at, and how to get there.
So from this, can I surmise like sounds like the core KPIs then that you're looking at changes and helping organizations are not going to be so much dictated and mandated by Raju and the company, but more along the lines of we have to measure, the fact that they're arriving at each location and when and how they arrive there, right?
Correct. They have to arrive there. Yes.
They have to arrive there, and we have to measure that and the time it takes and those type of things. But in terms of the specific actions that they take to do that, do you put less emphasis on that in terms of like corporate measurement of things like, just go back to the standards that people always used to measure, phone calls and emails and conversations and this, that, and the other? I mean, are those still a part of what you do, or are you empowering each individual on the teams?
We do that at stage 2, stage 3, stage 4.
Okay.
We think that's
Gotcha.
that's operational discipline. Of course, you need to look at those things, but you end up looking at noise. I'll give you one example. Recently, we were talking to a guy, a client basically, with one of the startup. It's a small company, 15 people startup, and we are trying to do a deal of managed services and so on. And after we finished the deal, we do sales as a service. So we were selling and, we'll get a revenue share, that sort of a thing. And at the end of the call, this CEO sends me a WhatsApp message and says, I haven't seen anybody talk faster than me in my career so far. And he gave me, I think one of the tools measures the number of words that is done. So my word count per minute was 193. And his word count was 192. And he was very surprised to see that I was faster than him. And his comment on top of that was, one, you talk a lot faster than what I do. And second, the fact that he has not seen others do the same. But he said, it never felt it was too fast. I'm surprised that you were talking so fast because I was on the call and I listened, but you were never fast. It was extremely clear, very articulate, and so on. And I was a little surprised on why he was looking at it. And then I went and looked at what does good look like, and they say that 150, 160 words is probably good and ideal, that sort of a thing. Whereas I was not thinking on those lines. My thinking is it doesn't matter how fast you do, but you have to pace the number of words based on the person listening. And people do this instinctively. If you're talking to a 10-year-old or a 5-year-old, you tend to slow down a little bit. It has nothing to do with 150 words. Probably 75 is good. Whereas if you're talking to somebody else who thinks faster, who understands faster, who gets there faster, you have to talk to them at that pace so that they understand. So the understanding is the key that the message is coming in, which means I'm focusing on the buyer, not on myself, whether I'm talking at 150 or 160. So I'm not self-centered, I'm others-centered. And that's what I said. You have to look at the buyer first and assess the speed at which they will talk. So if you're talking about racing to Lewis Hamilton, you don't want to tell him what racing is. You don't want to teach a fish how to swim. You have to talk faster, take orders, and do that. Whereas in other locations, if you're talking to 1,000 people in a hall, of course, 150 is better. So it really, that sort of a thing. So that calibration is not there. As long as people are understanding, it doesn't matter whether it's 150 or 180. Now, you tell this to everybody in your sales team, 10 of them. Okay. Some people talk slowly. Some people talk faster. All those kind of things are possible. That's their style. But if you make everybody 150, you're destroying their style. And as a result, you're destroying their confidence levels and their effectiveness. So you're the one killing those guys.
So that naturally comes from, I think, again, what I heard at the very beginning. And if I'm misstating this, let me know. But essentially that the other person is the focus all the time, right? The deal is the focus. We're in it to win it. It is not about us saying the right words that are magical and perfect every time, which is, a lot of people get they think, oh, I have to say this Raju's way. It's got to be perfect. It is about being in the moment and saying the right words to that person that you're talking to in that moment, which there is only one of them, right? So it's
Correct.
um,
So let's say there's a pitch. Okay, here's the thing. Okay, a lot of people will say practice the pitch. Of course, you should practice the pitch. There's no two ways about it. But at the end of it, somebody would say, you know what, my presentation was great. I did not miss a beat. I did not miss a word. I delivered exactly what I wanted to do. But that's the input metrics, meaning that's in my control. I can do it the way I like. But the output metric that we measured, remember the airport that I said you have to arrive at the airport. It's not how fast you go, or what time you start, how much time you spend on the road, what do you do along the way. None of that matters. The only thing that matters is the outcome. Did you arrive at the airport or some other location? An equivalent of that is, okay, you said what you had to say. What did the customer say? Did they understand it or did they not understand? If they didn't understand it, it doesn't matter what pitch you make. It's useless, or at least diluted or poisoned. One of these two things, because you're not paying attention to the person sitting across from you. If there's a group of people, of course, there's dynamics changes. But if there's one person, what else you have to do other than the person understand? And you should be understood. That's a two-way street. And if you think you can, just say it because, the boss has said this way or somebody else has said that way, and that's a good way of doing it, because because you understood at that pace does not mean the others will understand. They're too busy. They're in their own world. Their understanding levels, competence levels are different. So you are constantly looking at it. And an ideal way to look at it is when you're talking to your client, he or she is the only one in the universe. There's nobody else. Everyone else disappears. Okay. And you have to pay attention. If you pay attention, you'll know how to read them. You don't have to look for signals, body language, this and that. All that happens provided you're paying attention.
So when you're creating these organizations, you are looking to operationally scale a group of people that is selling wholly and fully like themselves at their best moment, which is really cool. It's right in line with a lot of the research that we've done, especially around like coaching. Like coaching is, if not the single biggest differentiator in a top sales organization, it's one of the top, right? It's one of the top three in any given thing. So it is specific. You need to operationalize a system that creates the best of each person, right? And that's really hard to do.
Correct.
Really, really hard to do.
We look at it as a formula. If you look at it as a template, it's hard because there's no one template that can do it. That becomes a hammer. You look for a nail. But if you treat it like a formula, for instance, what happens is it's like gravity. Right? If I'm throwing a piece of paper from a certain height, it comes down. It follows the gravity formula. You derive the formula, you give it to them, and then that guy can calculate how long it takes for a piece of paper. But if you throw a stone, if you throw a laptop, for example, all those things vary because that's subject to individual things. So we use a combination of templates and formulas. And formula is what you derive from. So if there are two people in a sales team and both people selling the same product at the same time, they're probably sitting next to each other, same place. Each one derives their own outcome on how to do it, and they go about doing that part in that way. It's not like just because the other guy has done it, I should do it. Sometimes that works. Obviously, you learn, but you have to internalize it and you have to practice it, and that's how. So we help people on the coaching front with a methodology that's easier to understand compared to all the methodologies out there. We think ours is the best. So if none of it works, that's when you should come and visit us. So there's obviously help aligned. It's like a system that helps you keeps you on track, just like gravity. Gravity doesn't send you sideways; it sends you forward unless you're pushing it sideways. So it always is oriented towards winning the deal, in it to win it, and we keep that as a central piece for any deal. Otherwise, just get out of the deal, go have a beer, do something else. Why do you want to sell something when you don't want to win?
Well, can I ask you then? I'd like to stop there because I'd like to have you back on. Are you open to that?
Sure.
Okay, because the things I'd like to go into would be that formulaic. I love the way you're stating that, and and your take on this, the looking at it formulaically, understanding that. I want to dive into that, plus your methodology, and because the more I go along my journey, I've noticed that uh, we're using different words sometimes, but I have very similar concepts. I think if we start to break down like methodology, it needs to be so simple that you can execute it in your sleep and execute it on your own, in your own way, right? It's not my way, it's your way. And it has to, and people have to be able to embody it. So I'd love to dive into that more with you. Are you open to that?
Oh, 100%. That's my bread and butter. What are you talking about?
Oh, I love it. I love it. Cause I think we could probably talk for the next 2, 3, 4 hours. I also got to introduce you to George Bruntine. George, I'm putting in a plug for you. He's done some amazing work on looking at DSRP and systems thinking and sales as a system, and kind of thinking that through. You know, and it really ties in. So I got to make that introduction for you. Maybe I'll have him on the pod too when we get together. Raju, how do people find you if they're interested in this? How do they find you to connect?
You just write to me. It's very easy. So, so how do people find us? Initially, it was networking, the same thing that every startup does. Now, it's easy to say all the good things at the end of it, but I would say 60-70% of people found from somewhere. They talked to somebody, they heard from somewhere, hey, this problem is not fixing, and there's a lot of jargon, and everyone's finger pointing, this and that, and they found out the most recent one this week that we signed. They talked to somebody, their APAC, it's a big company. This one is a big company. This is 3,000, 4,000 people in payments industry. They're one of the world leaders, but their Asia business is not meeting EBITDA numbers. Okay. And they're like, how do we fix it? And I would ask their managing director of Asia and whoever else is involved, without going into details, what's your problem? What do you need us for? Okay, so I like this happened by accident. I'll also give you one more story. I find it funny. So we discuss about what is your problem. What are your symptoms first, and then we go through the details. Symptoms, usually they're very accurate, although it's not complete. That's how they're doing it. But then we phrase that as, what do you think, what according to you is the problem? And then that's when they'll start diluting it. They use labels and so on. And then what do you think is the root cause for it? And then that's when a lot of people become frog scientists, and they would, go all over the place. That's when we know, okay, so this is the problem. So give us some time. And so we signed it, and the plan there is to turn around one of the region's businesses before end of December. That's live. And so there are RFPs going on, there are multiple things going on, etc. And they found me through a common friend that we worked with. One of my guys, we worked together. That guy's based in Australia, and somebody knew somebody, and somebody else worked with somebody, and then that's when it landed. Now, here's the news. I said, what did you do to solve this problem so far? And they gave me 2 names, world-renowned names. I won't name them for confidentiality reason. One of them is in the training business, very well-known training business. One of them is very well-known sales problem fixer for large companies, consulting firm. And I said, why is it not working? Because those guys pretty much know everything. There's nothing we can tell about anything else. And they're like, yeah, those guys got rich. What can you do for us? And what we said is, we will do, here's the fee, but I get 70% of the fee only if you succeed. We don't make money unless you make money. It's not a training exercise where there's a driving range and you do all that. So that's one aspect. Another one, so they found us through someone else. The other one is a startup ecosystem provider in Singapore linked to the government. And they're like, they found one of my partners. Again, this one, nobody finds me. I don't know why, but they found my partners. And they would say, okay, what do you guys do? We help people sell better. Okay. And they're like, okay, what's going on? And I would be invited, and I'm looking at that and saying, what do you need us for? Well, you are a government-linked company. You have money, you have connections, you're investing, you have the technology. You make phone calls, and people will. There's always somebody's brother-in-law who'll buy from you, and there's always somebody's uncle who'll buy from you. So, so, so what do you need us for?
Yeah.
And they're like, no, we've been trying that. It's not been working for the last 18 months. I was genuinely surprised because I didn't think they were our client. If you put those names, I wouldn't ever think those are our prospects. And they would say, it's not working. I said, I'm a little curious now because initial deals happens. Can you show me what you're doing? And they would show us. And I would look at that and say, okay, if you're doing that one, this is what will happen. And if you're doing this other one, then this other thing would happen. To them, it sounded like magic. And I'm like, no, it's not magic. It's very obvious for me. You just don't know how to look at it. You didn't have the background. And I just happened to have a background. Anybody with experience will be able to say, this is what will happen. It's all academic. So think of it like they're looking at the same thing from 50,000 feet high. So it is right. They're describing the same forest, same water, same everything else. But when you look at it from 5 feet closer or 5 inches close, it has the same picture is seen in a totally different way. And they were like, okay, so then they gave us 6 startups and said, can you guys fix these guys? And 3 quarters later, we got them 11 purchase orders. And them and like, oh, that's good. And we are beginning to partner with them. The terms are totally different. So we're trying to build an AI sales buddy. So I don't have to be there. The buddy will keep them focused on the buyer and not on the pain, because pain anybody can solve. But buyer is the one who's making the decision. So you have to align with that person. So most people say in the startups, there's a product market fit. And we say in sales, it's the buyer seller fit. And that's where the deal really happens. And there is a method to do it. So long story short, I don't have a formula on how we didn't reach to that place, but we are trying to build a product which is AI sales buddy. That's when we'll start reaching out to people. Until then, people have been coming to us, and a couple of companies are already deploying our AI sales buddy. It's in beta actually, so that it answers the questions differently. It focuses on the buyer. It focuses on objection handling that nobody ever knows. All those objection handling, all those other tools, they are oriented towards sales managers. There are over 1,000 tools. We are oriented towards the sales rep that can derive the answer for themselves in that particular deal, and so that they're able to convert more deals into wins, more leads into wins, sales qualified leads into wins.
That's really exciting stuff, Raju. Great to work with you on this podcast. Excited to work with you through Membrane as well, and then we'll definitely have you back on real soon. Are you on LinkedIn?
I am on LinkedIn.
Yes. LinkedIn, awesome. And then, do you mind if we publish like your email or anything like that on the show notes so people can reach out?
Not at all. No
Okay.
Privacy, please.
Okay. All right. Yeah. We're gonna get you out there. So that's awesome. Well, thank you, Raju. You're shining really bright in the world of sales. I really appreciate the time together and the way you break things down. I can tell you talked at a good rate of speed, I think, for this one. I'm not sure we were hitting the 193, but you definitely matched my pace. It was awesome. So I really appreciate the time and your effort in this. You are, I can tell you put in your 10,000 hours. Definitely worked at your craft. So with that, any final things to leave with the audience?
Now, if you are able to sell and if you're able to move ahead, no need to contact us. But if you have sales problem that is not getting solved with whatever else that you've got, assuming you have a product that's working, then what are you waiting for? Just give us a call.
All right. Wonderful. Well, thank you so much, Raju. Everybody, have an amazing day. Keep shining bright. And that is it for this episode of The Art and Science of Complex Sales. We'll talk to you soon.
Pleasure talking to you, Paul.